What is intelligent infinity? In the raw material, intelligent infinity is used as a synonym for potential. So, Ra explains that there is a unity, and the unity is all there is. Remember, reality is one. But within that unity, there's both a potential aspect and a kinetic aspect. There's both this space of design, and then there's the way that those designs are actualized. And the potential, the space of designs itself, this infinite expansive space, is called intelligent infinity. Tapping this potential yields work. When that potential becomes actual, that's when we get the physical universe. That's when we get this bound telesis, or as it's called by Ra, intelligent energy. And so telesis, the unified stuff of reality, has these two aspects simultaneously. It is both unbound telesis, it is this space of infinite expansive potential that exists in a non-terminal domain of design and potential, but also it exists not just in this spirit world, this abstract domain, but then it actualizes itself, it binds itself in the ever-unfolding process of reality. And when it's in its actualization or display phase, then it is called bound telesis, or intelligent energy, which is the substance of the world of actualization and corporeal existence. So telesis is the stuff of reality, and it has these two aspects, intelligent infinity and intelligent energy. To understand intelligent infinity, to understand the potentialization aspect of the telic medium of reality, you have to understand some basics of the CTMU. Everything in the CTMU is the expression of the same ultimate identity. This is the metaphysical ontology principle. It says that reality contains all and only that which is real, and so therefore reality is self-creating, self-explaining, self-sustaining, and so forth. So this means that there is an ultimate unity to reality, because if reality has these faculties of being able to create itself and so on, then there has to be a unified identity. There has to be something through which reality exists, and that which binds all of these creative functions together. And so that means that there is, at the top of this many-colored and variegated expression of the world, there is actually a unified identity. There's something which connects everything in reality. But reality, when the created world begins to exist, it has to change from that original unity to a self-duality. And a self-duality means that it takes itself, it uses its own substance to create a experience of the world separate from itself. And this, according to the raw material, is for the more vivid and bright experience of the creator by the creator. So the purpose of creation is the logical and experiential self-identification of the creator. And when it becomes self-dual, it splits from this original unity to the potential and kinetic aspects, the non-terminal domain of potentialization and design, and a terminal domain of realized potential, a phase of existence which generatively evolves using the logos and sub-logi. So that means that there's this distributed fine-tuning whereby everything in the universe has this certain creativity and freedom and intelligence, and that is how the universe continues to exist and evolve, through tapping that potential of intelligent infinity. So everything in the world, even though it appears finite to our eyes because we have to actually collapse that space of potential in order to see anything, its ultimate unbound aspect still exists within that intelligent infinity. And so we can place both intelligent energy and intelligent infinity within one self-dual module that contains both of them. So reality itself is both infinite and energetic. It is both using this potential, this power of telic recursion, which then allows us secondary telic quanta to make changes within reality, because reality is telic. It's always creating these new potentials and designs and timelines, and that means that we can affect changes in reality, which will not only yield work in the sense of physical mechanics, but actually create intelligent energy. We have what's called agentive telesis, meaning that we can affect the world using intelligent infinity. We can change how that intelligent infinity will bind itself in order to actualize the next possible state of bound telesis. So you are actualizing a particular timeline for reality's organic evolution by interfacing with the space of infinite expansive potential called unbound telesis or intelligent infinity. So we are part of the agentive quanta that change intelligent infinity into intelligent energy. And at the level of fundamental reality, the work is equivalent to that on which the work is being done. So telesis and telic recursion become two aspects of the same thing. It's the fundamental substance of all of existence. Is this self-programming? Is this self-design? And the how reality adapts to its variegated internal, freely changing conditions is through this telic medium which pervades all of existence. And so therefore reality is self-generative because it can use this intelligent infinity to adapt on the fly to freely changing internal conditions and can kind of fine-tune that using secondary tellers or observer participants such as human beings to generate new axioms for its existence and evolution, and thus participate advantageously in the structure and evolution of reality. So we are not just brute physical phenomena that supervene on the world, but we are actually very important to the process of reality as observer participants. Ross says, the nature of this work, the nature of our role in reality, is dependent upon the particular distortion of free will. So that means that we are deeply involved within reality because we share within the original self-generative freedom of the identity of reality. So that through which reality exists then enters into us, and we have the ability to make calls on behalf of reality. And that means that we can deviate from the overall teleology, the overall end and purpose of reality in some minor ways. So the nature of this work means that we can use that particular intelligent energy, that particular agentive telesis, and use it against reality. So we can go against the potential unity of that which is all, of the overall purpose of existence. And the ascending densities of consciousness are equivalent to the more intelligent use of free will. So we start with just this basic drive for life, and then we move to some basic kinds of self-organization, and we move past just like those elements, and then we get to, basic mammal life and so forth, and then we get to a energy of universal love, and then we have to pass from universal love into this energy of wisdom, and then intelligent infinity and so forth, and then we have a gateway into actually uniting with the overall identity of reality. So through all of those densities, we're getting to a higher level of consciousness because we are figuring out how to use our free will in line with the structure of reality. And so individuals and species, these social memory complexes, are becoming more wise in the way that they use their freedom and actually gain more power as you ascend up those densities. So Ross says, intelligent infinity has a rhythm or flow as of a giant heart beginning with the central sun, as you would think or conceive of this. The presence of the flow inevitable as a tide of beingness without polarity, without finity. So there is this central infinite sun from which everything emerges poetically. This is how we can start to picture this kind of thing. The vast and silent all beating outward, focusing outward and inward until the focuses are complete. So the intelligent infinity focuses itself even as it's beating, even as it's expanding and contracting, it's potentializing and re-quantizing. And this intelligence or consciousness of the foci reach a spiritual nature or mass, as you call them, and inward until all is coalesced. So it goes inward and outward corresponding respectively to the intention and extension of reality. That is the rhythm of reality. The central sun is the logos, the word of God, or the metalinguistic identity of reality, and the created world is the self-identification of the logos through intelligent infinity. So there's an identity of reality, and that expresses itself through the created world. So all things begin and end in the creator because creation emanates from God, and logos, and then returns through logos to God. And so thus it is able to map the terrain of finitude. This is what we mean by self-identification, is that it is figuring out what finitude is like, and the infinite is able to become intelligent through the experience of finite reality, meaning it is aware of possibilities beyond itself, because there's a more full and complete knowledge of knowing what finitude is like than just existing as the infinite, and it has to actually experience that, it has to actually create the world, and therefore the infinite says, I am that, to the true and good order created within reality through its organic evolution. So the infinite identifies with teleology, and that is the way that it evolves and has a bright, vivid, and rich experience of itself through itself by itself. By voluntarily taking on the drama of cosmic existence through an eternal and unchanging will to sovereignty, the creator enters the hero's journey of reality, travailing the unknown and the known to arrive at the place it started and to know the terrain for the first time. So the purpose and end of reality is simply reality, because there's nothing outside of reality for it to have a goal to strive towards, but it creates this theater for itself. It creates these localized projections of confusion, of free will, through these secondary tellers who are supposed to come together and realize the unity of reality anyway. So this process is repeated in the life and destiny of all secondary telequant, of all observer participants in reality, who are meant to participate in co-creation with God and therefore exist through teleology and self-actualization in line with the law of one. They're supposed to realize that everything in reality is the expression of one identity, and therefore act in that way and ascend those densities until they are able to give creation as a gift back to the creator, and that completes the cycle of existence. So the logos is intelligent infinity. The logical and experiential self-identification of the creator through logos and intelligent infinity can be understood as a breath. And we don't need to make this too anthropomorphic, but given the implicit anthropic coupling between observer and the universe, it's actually not super inappropriate. So as it breathes in, it expands to include all potential, and then it contracts to include only itself. So it breathes in, and it includes all of the potential of the universe, and then as it breathes out, it simply becomes intelligent energy. It includes only that which is actual. And so it expands and then contracts. Itself means its own identity. So it includes only that through which it exists and only that which exists within it. So this is not a static process where it internally expands and then goes back to square one. That would be a static universe. But actually in each octave of creation, it generatively couples its identity with its instances through the syntactic metaverse, this space of infinite expansive potential through which the universe interfaces and evolves to generate an identity on the fly according to freely changing internal conditions. So reality is involved in the business of making an identity for itself. So God is defined as a personal being relative to the created beings with whom he shares authority over the world and into whom he dwells and enters into a relationship. Thus, in the domain of this mapping of God to his creatures, God is absolute and invariant, but in the codomain, in the way in which God actually has a one-to-one relationship and we are directly connected to the greatest source of knowledge and power in existence, God is essentially personal. He is the personal relationship of reality, that which binds everything together into a unity and takes all of these different perspectives and makes them one. This intersubjective reality created through his divine breath. So God contains all scales of personal and impersonal existence within a single unity. That means that the creator in reality, in fact, is essentially a personal reality because it experienced through personality, through our consciousness, through agentive tellers who actually participate in its creation and move it from intelligent infinity to intelligent energy. So the God is relative to his creatures a creator, a king, a father, a light that lights every man and woman that comes into this world. So we as humans are meant to unite creation back to God, back to the creator through understanding and applying the law of one and CTMU meta-ethics until all is coalesced back into a single unity, and God is recognized in all, by all, and as light love and love light, and the consummate transformation of reality will then occur, because we'll realize that we can't deviate from the teleology of God, of the end and purpose of reality, if we ever wish to have this intelligence ourselves and to wake up as a species to that level of love and wisdom which we need in order to pass through the great filter. So there's no difference in unity. So even though there are these potential and kinetic aspects, they are self-dual, because they are two aspects of the same quanta. The non-terminal and terminal domains are emergent features of an essentially monic reality. So they are two aspects of one reality. So intelligent energy exists in the dual phase of the self-dual relation, and intelligent infinity is itself the monic phase. So it's both the aspect of potentialization, but then it is the aspect of unity. Because remember, we discussed earlier, you can't define unity without infinity, and you can't define infinity without unity. These two things have to be coupled with one another, because one is the identity of that through which everything exists, and one is the potential of that which can exist. So infinity and unity are intrinsically coupled and self-dual to one another, and there's no difference between them within that original unity. So through syntactically distributing the self-generative freedom of the GOD, of the global operator descriptor, to all instances of the syntactic metaverse, through the freedom free will distortion of the law of one, it is recognized that the creator will know itself. This is the purpose of existence, for the creator to know itself, and it will discover itself through the freedom of the observer and participants as herein described. So God is identifying himself through the experience of creation by created beings. As Ra confirms, the creator will know itself. It grants for this knowing the concept of freedom, total freedom of choice in the ways of knowing. So God is trying to know what it is like through his experience of humanity, through entering into the world as these secondary telequanta. He's trying to know what it's like not to know everything, to discover infinity through his projections as cognitively bound, finite observer participants like human beings. Because it's very easy for God to see unity. It's very easy for God to see infinity, because that is all that God sees. That's what God is. But when you have this experience of the created world, then you have these beings which are in the image and likeness of God and can experience this for themselves. It is a more complete knowing to know the infinite through finitude and constraint. All experience, or as Christopher Langan says, the multi-layered veil of Maya, illusion, is generated by the law of free will. So in order for there to be this free will, there has to be this self-contraction of God, or this way of confusion. If we could know everything, if everything were apparent to us, then we would have no free will. So in order for us to have free will, to have the abilities to make these choices, we have to live in a physical reality and be cognitively and perceptually bound. And in this physical reality, God is discovering his freedom through the process of reality. And so thus, he literally becomes, through localized projections of himself, a finite participant in his own created energies, and thus has true self-generative freedom. So all of these beings are truly free because of this way in which human beings are free, because they are made in the image of light and likeness of God, and God is free. So if God is free, then we have to be free, because we take on the role, a partial role of God within the creation as co-creators. This freedom scales to generate all experience of creation for the purpose of the logical experiential self-identification of the One. The One, the Creator, knows himself through the drama of existence. In the words of cognitive psychologist Donald Hoffman, the pioneer of the multimodal user interface theory of perception and conscious realism, says, "What we are avatars of the One. The One awareness is exploring all of its different possibilities through its different avatars." So your mind-body-spirit complex is a sub-logos, a self-similar image of the love that moves the sun and the other stars. The world is literally the eternal expression of love. Ra says, quote, "The process by which space-time comes into continuum form is a function of the careful building, shall we say, of an entire or whole plan of vibratory rates, densities, and potentials. When this plan has coalesced in the thought complexes of love, then the physical manifestations begin to appear, the first manifestation stage being awareness or consciousness. Space-time then begins to unroll in scroll of livingness." So, space-time unrolls its scroll of livingness. We live in a story, and that scroll is turning and turning and turning again until, and we grow old with it and gray with it, because that is all that there is. It is this scroll of livingness, the physical unfolding of the universe. And when all of creation, Ra says, in its infinity, has reached a spiritual gravitational mass of a sufficient nature, meaning that it has properly recognized itself, as infinity, as unity, the entire creation infinitely coalesces, the light seeking and finding its source, and thusly ending the creation. This is the light by which the One sees itself, the One saw itself through its own light, and ends the creation and begins a new creation. Much as you consider the black hole, as you call it, with its conditions of infinitely great mass at the 0 point, from which no light may be seen as it has been absorbed. So essentially, when all of creation reaches this final coalescence point, it is a spiritual black hole. It all comes back together as though it were always one. So infinitely great spiritual mass at the 0 point means infinite density, which means that we pass back in from, and infinity is coupled with unity. So we just go to the next octave, to the next set of creation, and all light has found its way back to its source, and then it continues again, because the logical and experiential self-identification of God is not a time-bound process, but it is infinite. It will never end. Light finds its way back to its source. Let the light shine forth in the darkness. May the peace of our Father in heaven be upon you. Like and subscribe.